The UFC Featherweight division, man, is in shambles. I'm not one to sit here and rant, complain about the UFC, just be talking trash, downplaying Dana White all the time. It gets to a point. The featherweight division is so atrocious right now. First of all, the division's not even that competitive. It's definitely one of the lesser divisions in the UFC right now. And to make matters worse, this fight is not officially announced yet, but it's heavily rumored. To make matters worse, we're giving another undeserving title shot to a UFC contender. When there's a number one contender already established, Movsar Evalev, which maybe you don't think he's the most entertaining fighter, whatever. Yair, who is 1-2 in his last 3, who just beat a Bellator fighter who is washed and he's like 37. Yair just defeated somebody making their UFC debut. Boom. Title shot. Congratulations, buddy. Congratulations. You beat a debutant? Here's your title shot. And what's funny about this is these undeserving title shots that we keep getting end up being actually pretty entertaining fights. I do think this will be an entertaining fight. Volkanovski versus Yair. But why Yair, bro? Why Yair? This is rumored for the Mexico card at UFC 320. I don't know if this is just my opinion, if I'm a minority here, if this is a hot take, but why do you feel like you have to have a Mexican headline, a Mexican event? Maybe that's just my opinion. If there's no Mexican champion, look, I understand it if you have a Mexican champion, sure, go ahead. But when you don't have a Mexican champion, why are you trying to force a Mexican into the main event? Yair Rodriguez, again, it would be different if he was a number one contender. He's not. He's 1-3. He's 1-3 in his last. He's 1-2 in his last 3. And one of those fights being a loss to, you guessed it, Volkanovski. But here you go, man. Here's the rematch. It'd be different, I think, if Yair versus Volk 1 was a competitive fight. Maybe it was a close decision, controversial, but it wasn't. It was pretty one-sided. Volkanovski finished him. I'm tired of it, bro. I'm tired of the UFC playing favorites and acting like, oh, no, we let the best fight the best. Come on. That's not true. Now, don't get me wrong. Yair Rodriguez, one of the most entertaining fighters in the UFC. I love watching you, but really, he doesn't deserve this at all. I don't think there's one logical argument that could sway my opinion on this. But on top of this, the UFC Featherweight Rankings are already screwed up anyway. Just look at the top 5. First of all, Max Holloway is not a featherweight anymore, so get him out of here. And Ilia Topuria is still in here. He's not a featherweight either. I get they haven't made their lightweight appearance yet. Well, Max fought Gaethje and then came back down. But Ilia Topuria, listen, even if any of that has anything to do with this, why would Ilia Topuria be 3 anyway? He was the champion. What is this ranking system off of? If it was because they haven't made their debut at lightweight, sure. Why would Ilia Topuria not be 1? And then, guys, to make things even crazier, we have 2 contenders who are ranked number 4. Yair Rodriguez and Movsar Evalev, the 2 that should be competing for a title shot, or are competing. Yair should not be competing, but they're tied for number 4. What? The UFC has to fix the rankings, bro. It's getting ridiculous. At least take Max Holloway and Ilia out, and then we can discuss the rest. But let's get back into the fight with Yair versus Volk 2. Here is Yair Rodriguez's last 3 fights in the UFC. A win over Patricio Pitbull, which was a very boring fight, by the way. He didn't go out there and finish him. He didn't dominate. It was slow. Patricio Pitbull did nothing. Literally nothing. Probably threw 10 significant strikes. But before that, 1 fight ago, this man was getting finished by Brian Ortega. Yeah. And then you go before that, Alexander Volkanovski finished you 2 fights ago. Why are we doing the rematch? It wasn't even a close fight, like I said. Again, if it was a split decision or if it was a questionable decision, sure, whatever. You can run it back. Nobody's asking for this rematch. This is the most, what's the opposite of anticipated? Unanticipated, deticipated fight in UFC history. I don't think that was the right usage. I don't think that was even a word, but you get what I'm saying. Movsar Evalev, let's look at his last 3. A win over Aljamain Sterling. I want to go ahead and put this out there. A lot of you that think Movsar Evalev is boring, that's fine. But his fight with Aljamain Sterling was one of the best fights of the year. Absolute clinic of a grappling match. But anyway, before that, close fight with Arnold Allen. Either way, Arnold Allen's a tough out. You don't see Yair fighting Arnold Allen. Arnold Allen would beat Yair. And then you go before that. I get that Diego was making his debut. But Movsar Evalev has a win over the man who just fought for the title. And to make things worse, guys, it's not like Movsar Evalev just waiting around for a title shot. He announced on Twitter that he's going to be fighting in Abu Dhabi, which I believe is in July. And I think he's fighting Aaron Pico, who looks like a tough fighter. I don't know too much about him, but another guy coming over, making his UFC debut. Why is Movsar Evalev fighting him at the very least? If he's not going to be in a title fight, why is he not in a number one contenders fight? Again, I don't like to rant. I don't like to just, trash on the UFC like everybody else does on here on YouTube. But it really gets to a point. I was under the impression that the UFC Featherweight division was restored because Volkanovski reclaimed the title, but I guess Dana's here to mess everything up again. But I'm here to put in my application right now to fix the Featherweight division, to fix the UFC, bro. I'm really under the impression. I thought it was a joke at first. MMA Guru talking about he wants to take over the UFC. You've got my vote. If there was any election or anything, I know there never will be, I would much rather have MMA Guru run the UFC at this point. Because tell me if this is a crazy take, but Dana White, we know he's a big boxing guy, right? He's trying to promote Canelo. He got kicked, which was funny, by the way. But yeah, Dana White doesn't necessarily like these grappling fighters. You can tell. Bilal Muhammad went through a gauntlet to try to fight for the title. And when he did, he won the title. Movsar Evalev, you can look at his last 3 fights right here. Straight killers. Still is not getting a title shot. You can go to Merab Dvalishvili. They wouldn't give him a title shot for a while. This man went through Piotr Jan, Jose Aldo, Henry Cejudo, all before he fought for a title. And then you got guys that are strikers. Listen, this might be a stretch, but Yair Rodriguez, 1 fight win streak, he's fighting for the title. And then Jack Della Maddalena, this one's a stretch, I know, because he went through Burns, which was a tough fight. But they're not running the gauntlet like these wrestlers are. I think Dana White is just so infatuated with guys, that are able to pop the jab, throw the 1-2, cross down the middle. I mean, it's self-explanatory. Look at Sean Strickland. The 1-2, the teeps, man. Dana White loves that because Sean Strickland has unlimited title shots. But anyway, let's get into the matchmaking that should be taking place in the featherweight division. Obviously, Volkanovski versus Movsar. This is the most intriguing fight for Volkanovski right now. He's not in his prime anymore. He's still got it, but he's not, the same Volkanovski that we used to see. So if Volkanovski happens to beat Yair, which I think he will, still a tough fight. Once he fights Movsar Evalev, he will have gone through 2 more training camps, more wear and tear on the body. He will be older. He will be more susceptible to get chinned. He will be slower in the grappling, maybe a little bit weaker. Maybe the test is going down as well, man. I'm just saying I'm a Volk fan. I want to see this fight now. With that being said, I still think Volkanovski would win this fight, but bro, this is the fight that should be happening. And this would set up a perfect co-main event for UFC 320. This doesn't even have to take place in Mexico. You can put this somewhere else. You can put anything on the Mexican card, bro. Just give them a good fight. In the co-main event for UFC 320, bro, you're squandering your opportunity. That's a good word, squandering. You're squandering your opportunity for a heated rivalry to start, which has already started and it's been brewing. Literally over Mexico. Diego, apparently a fake Mexican. Yair's called him out for it. This is a banger 5-round co-main event. Yes, you're not going to make this the headliner, but this is a great co-main event for any card, and especially for the Mexican card. And if Volkanovski and Movsar Evalev fight for the title, which should be happening, I hope these rumors are false, by the way. They're not officially confirmed, but they look to be pretty true that we're getting Yair versus Volk. But this is a banger co-main event, which you wouldn't have to label it as a number 1 contenders fight. It could be sort of implied that it's basically a number 1 contenders fight, because if Movsar Evalev defeats Volkanovski and Diego Lopez were to win, Diego Lopez versus Movsar Evalev 2, there's a storyline there. Movsar has already beaten him in the past. And if Diego Lopez wins this fight, maybe you do Volkanovski versus Lopez 2, since a lot of people love that fight. It's one of the best fights of the year too. Or while this fight is taking place, we do Jean Silva, who's getting fast-tracked, who looks phenomenal, should fight a guy like Arnold Allen. Now, this is a massive step up for Jean Silva. Arnold Allen, one of the best fighters in that division. But y'all got to hear me out. This is why I wouldn't label Diego versus Yair as a number one contenders fight. Because let's run this fight, UFC 318, UFC 319, something like that. Jean Silva, if he goes out there, if he chins Arnold Allen, or if he gets to win it all, you could make the argument that he could jump the line for the next title fight. Yes, even if Yair defeats Diego Lopez, he will be on a 2-fight win streak. Why do we act nowadays like a 2-fight win streak is the same as a 7-fight win streak? It's not, bro, and we want fresh matchups. If Jean Silva wins and Volkanovski beats Evalev, let's just do Volk versus Jean Silva. But there's also one more possibility that could happen that y'all need to hear me out on. If Volkanovski beats Evalev, I think he might even feel as if there's no more competition there at featherweight. In his head, obviously, Volk's a humble guy. He's not going to say that. But if Volk wins and Ilia Topuria defeats Charles Oliveira, I think Volkanovski is going to push hard to move up and try to get his revenge against Ilia Topuria. And you know what? If Volkanovski takes out Movsar, he's going to have a little bit more hype going into the Ilia fight. I think the UFC will be willing to grant that because that sets up either an interim title, and if they force Volkanovski to vacate, sure, we can do a vacant title between this winner right here, Jean Silva and Arnold Allen, and Diego Lopez and Yair. I think this is the best matchmaking you could make right now. It makes all the sense in the world. It's not that difficult. I'm also hearing rumors that there's Jean Silva versus Diego Lopez, which is a banger fight, by the way. But man, if this Yair versus Volk fight is true, and Jean Silva beats Diego Lopez, if that fight's true as well, don't you think he's also going to jump Movsar for a title fight? Because I do. I think Movsar Evalev is getting screwed by the promotion. Per usual, bro. They've done it to multiple fighters. Even Muhammad Mokaev, I know there was other stuff there behind the scenes that I don't know about. At least that's what we're told. But Muhammad Mokaev was undefeated and got cut from the UFC. But anyway, I think these are the matchups that you need to make. This is my take on the whole situation. The UFC Featherweight Rankings need to change. Volkanovski needs to fight Movsar Evalev and not Yair Rodriguez, who he just beat 2 fights ago. And Dana White, just pack it up, gang. Hey, Dana, we're all good over here. MMA gurus here. But that's going to be it for me. Y'all let me know what y'all agree with, what y'all disagree with. Let me know if I'm crazy. And let me know which title fight you think should be next for the featherweight division. With that being said, guys, we out.